Hello, hello. How goes it, guys? welcome. Right, guys. We have a very exciting day today because I'm going to read some fan fiction for you all. So, Derry very kindly set all this up. So, we owe a lot to Derry and to Ellen for allowing me to read this fan fiction. I've heard it's a bit juicy, as you can tell by some of the tags here. We have a public one right there. So it should be hilarious to read. I'm sure Ellen is a fantastic writer. Ellen of Oz right here. And it's called On the Road. Yeah, I've never read fanfic in my life. I know a lot of it because I know a lot of friends that read it. So this is all going to be new to me, but I'm very excited by it. I'm going to keep an open mind, looking forward to it. Should be good. Do we have a little... Oh, we do. We have a summary as well. Dean, Cass said, looking over at him from the passenger seat. You're stressed. Let me help. Let me relieve some of that tension. Dean glanced over, then looked back to the interstate rolling beneath them across the Kansas prairie. The angel was staring intently at him, a worried look in his eye. I'm fine. Those vamps just pissed me off, that's all. Oh, I should have given my best, Dean impression then. He and Cass were on their way home after a particularly bloody fight, during which Cass had nearly taken a bite to the neck. If Dean's machete hadn't got there in time, God bless Dean and his machete. Sides, he continued, what can you do to help? ? Wink, wink. Oh, shall we read the notes first? Working hard on something a lot more complicated, but here's a short porny thing for all my girls in the Destiel trash can. Why does that make me laugh so much? Thanks to the Viper vocals for baiting. Right, okay. So they've pre-read it as well. Right. My reading isn't the best, I'll be honest, but I'll do my very best for you guys to... But it is on the screen if you'd need to follow along. I know it'd be a bit small if you're on mobile, but if you're on PC, that'd be really... This from a patron. No, this is from Ellen of Oz. I think she's a strong writer for the supernatural fanfic, if I'm mistaken. Derry, let me know. She would have been here, but it's a bit too late for her this time. But she wishes us best of luck in reading this. And again, all my thanks to Ellen for letting me do this. Dean, Cass said, looking over at him from the passenger seat. You're stressed, let me help. Dean glanced over, then looked back to the interstate rolling beneath them across the Kansas prairie. The angel was staring intently at him, a worried look in his eye. I'm fine, those vamps just pissed me off, that's all. He and Cass were on their way home from a particularly bloody fight during which Cass nearly taken a bite to the neck if Dean's machete hadn't got there first. Sides, he continued, what can you do to help? Castiel said a little closer on the bench seat. Slid a little closer on the bench seat. When Dean glanced again, Cass's hand was an inch away from the side of Dean's face, about to stroke his cheek with the back of his fingers. Dean flinched away, startled. He looked back at Cass and his face. His beautiful blue eyes were right there. I mean, come on, he does have beautiful blue eyes. It wasn't the first time they had been intimate. Oh, there has been shy kisses, touches even, in quiet moments when Sam wasn't around. Sam cock-blocking, but certainly not in the car, or while he was driving. Fuck's sake. Castiel made a small shushing sound and leaned closer, planting a soft kiss to the skin just under Dean's ear. A shiver went through Dean, right down to his toes. Right to his tootsies, guys. He shifted slightly in his seat to give himself a little more room in his jeans. They seemed tight all of a sudden. He pulled away slightly again. Whoa, slow down there, cowboy. You trying to get us killed? Dean. Damn. Dean loved it when Cass took charge. He could feel the angel's eyes boring into the side of his head as he continued. Keep your eyes on the road, I'll take care of you. Just the idea of what taking care of him might involve already had his blood rush into his crotch. but then Cass leaned in again and bit his earlobe hard. His earlobe. He nearly swerved the car right off the road, but managed to pull it back in line. Cass didn't flinch, just placed a line of kisses down Dean's neck in a very distracting manner. Dean let out a surprised yelp when Cass rubbed a hand over his chest and under his flannel. Living the dream. Pinching one of his nipples through his t-shirt. His hand wandered south and brushed over the growing bulge in Dean's jeans, and Dean clutched the steering wheel for dear life. Cass palmed at Dean through the denim, then looked at him through his lashes. I'm going to unbutton these. I couldn't imagine Cass saying that. Dean tore his eyes from the road for a moment to look down at Cass's flushed face and parted lips. See, that I could imagine. Okay, he gasped. There was definitely not enough blood in his brain for driving right now. He tried to keep all of his attention keeping the wheel steady while Cass carefully unbuttoned Dean's jeans and pulled at the zipper. He inspected Dean's boxer briefs and said, Dean, I'm going to need to pull them down a bit. Could you lift your hips? Dean glanced down again and tried to wiggle his ass off the seat without stepping on the gas. Cass pulled the jeans down around his hips a bit, allowing him to pull Dean's cock out from its confines. Why am I such a child now? Dean sighed at the release of pressure, although Cass's touch then caused him to gasp again. Castiel stroked lazily a few... Lazily? That seems a very peculiar word to use there. Lazily a few times. He just wants it to last even longer, that's what it is. Now Dean really was having trouble keeping a straight line on the road, but when Cass leaned down and took Dean entirely into the wet heat of his mouth, he swerved across the road again, causing the person in the car behind them to blare their horn for a few seconds. Dean wrestled with the steering wheel as Castiel licked at his cock, sucking on the tip. I feel like I need a warning in the title here. Dean had no choice but to let out a low moan as Cass took him into his mouth again and again, bringing him closer to the edge. Just then, more beeping was heard from behind. The driver must have lost patience because they pulled out to the left to overtake along the straight one-lane highway. As the car pulled level with Dean's window, the older aged lady glared at Dean's flushed face. Cass popped off Dean's cock and looked up, startled. The woman's eyes widened in shock, and she snapped back, staring at the road, speeding up and taking off ahead. I mean, you didn't slow down and have a good look? What's wrong with you, woman? She swerved back into the right lane and headed off at significantly higher than the speed limit. Oh dear. Cass said, huh? And grinned, and Dean dissolved into helpless laughter. He had no choice then but to pull over, and once he had stopped laughing and wiped away the tears, I'm glad it's tears he's wiping away here, Cass grabbed him again and licked and sucked and swallowed until Dean was coming down his throat with a shout. Castiel smiled at Dean, licking his lips. Dean grabbed him in a filthy kiss, then pushed him off again. I love that. Filthy kiss. Let's never do that again. We nearly ended up in a ditch. Ah, said Cass, looking disappointed. I don't get a turn. Dean growled and pushed Cass back against his side of the car, sliding his trench coat off his shoulders and kissing him roughly. His angel was going to be the death of him. I mean, where's the lie about Castiel being the death of Dean here? Forever tugging on his heartstrings, and apparently something else as well. Oh, that was over so quick. Yeah, chapter 1 of 1. Dang. Damn, Daniel. I was really enjoying that. That was super short. Yes, I can always send you more though. Hells yeah, send me another. I freaking love that. That was absolutely hilarious. Right, oh, I've been sent another one, so let me get that up on my computer. I already love this GIF as well, so it's already a yes from me. I can guarantee it. Oh no, I'm gonna cringe more. To be fair, I kind of love the fact that yous are all squirming right now. I'm getting enjoyment from it. Right, this one's called The Handmaiden and the Barkeep. Wanky. This is also by the wonderful Ellen. And the summary is, it's the mid-year jubilee at the Moondor. Yes, Moondor LARP group. I love this already. And Dean joins his best friend Charlie for the first time as the handmaiden to the Queen of Moons. Dean enjoys the battle against the Shadow Orcs, but when they visit the tavern afterwards, he finds a whole new reason to enjoy his day and the form of a tall, dark, handsome bartender. Notes. This story was inspired by a prompt posted in Destiel Port Facebook group. There's going to be loads of Facebook groups as well. I didn't even think about that. Also, it's dedicated to my bestie, Trenchcoat Baby, on the occasion of her birthday. How cute! Ellen, you might be the cutest little bean ever. Thanks to Malmuses and Away with Jen for swift proofreading. I love that you guys proofread each other's work as well. It's so sweet. Here we go. If there's one thing Dean is sure of as he runs into battle alongside his brother as part of the great army of the followers of the moon, is this chainmail. It's freaking heavy. Even though the aluminium version that Charlie has made him wear probably only weighs 5 pounds after a few hours of standing around waiting for the battle to start, he's looking forward to taking the damn thing off. Not only that, but for some unknown reason, it only covers his shoulders. What's protecting the rest of him? Now that he's running, waving around a wooden sword, he hates to think that wearing actual steel might have been like. But it's worth it, all of it, to see the look in his best friend's eye as she leads her army into battle. Her Majesty, the Queen of Moons, is a sight to behold as she wields a painted sword, waving it over her head as she whips her soldiers into a frenzy. It's Moondor's mid-year jubilee. The sun is beating down and the battle is fierce. Dean hadn't been sure what to expect from his first day with Charlie's LARP group, but he'd seen the pictures of the mock battles of their website, and Charlie has raved about it for freaking ages now, so he's been looking forward to this. He ducks and weaves away from the swords of his opponents, managing to land a few blows himself. The Moon Guard advances across the field. He keeps half an eye on Charlie's back, making sure none of the sneaker Shadow Orcs are trying to take down his queen. But they battle their way to the flag, and just like that, the battle is over. Charlie turns, holding the red flag high in the air, and the Moon Guards cheer, even those who had fallen in battle from their positions on the grass. Dean offers a hand to help up the Shadow Orc he'd just stabbed to death, and the guy wanders off with a "Grats, man," and a pat on Dean's shoulder. Seriously, this place is kind of fucked up, but Dean has to admit he's absolutely freaking loving it. And you know full well that is true, because Dean was loving that, apart from when he fell over. Remember that, guys? Although that was Jensen. See, I told you, didn't I tell you you'd love it? Charlie proclaims once they've divested themselves of weapons and sojourn to the tavern. Dean rolls his eyes and mutters fondly, "Yeah, whatever," as he makes to sit down at the long bench by the table, but he freezes at Charlie's commanding voice. Handmaiden, aren't you forgetting something?" Damn, how does she do that? Charlie had to have been some kind of royalty or a wartime general perhaps in a past life. Dean looks around at a loss. What? That's what, your majesty to you, Dean. Fetch us some ale. She says imperiously as Gilda joins her on the wooden bench opposite Dean. Sam has gone off with some of his school friends since he can't legally join them for a drink, so it's just the three of them. For now. Dean gets back to his feet, not willing to risk getting on Charlie's bad side after the way he'd seen her hack at several orcs earlier. He approaches the bar, resting his elbows on it while he waits to be served, glancing back towards their table to see Charlie and Gilda sucking face like their lives depend on it. Jeez, might be a lonely ride home for him tonight. "Can I help you?" The gravelly voice pulls Dean from his thoughts, and he turns back to the bar into the gaze of a tall, dark-haired and chiselled-jawed man. His bright blue eyes are looking back at Dean with obvious interest, and when he raises one eyebrow quizzically, Dean nearly loses his grip on the earth, at the same time realising that he's waiting for Dean's order. A drink, please, ale. Three ales. Dean nearly slaps himself. What the fuck is his brain doing? I can relate, this happens to me on the regular. "Yes, sir," Dean squeaks. And with the Queen, the man's head tilts to the side to look over Dean's shoulder, making his longish fringe flop across his forehead. "I see. Well," he adds quietly, his eyes pinning Dean once again with their bright gaze. "You seem to have lost your companions for the moment. I have a break in 10 minutes, so if you'd like me to, show you around the encampment, I'd be happy to do that. Dean is only aware of his mouth hanging open when he noticed the grin of the dark-haired girl standing further along behind the bar, her outrageous wink making him snap his mouth shut with a click of its teeth. The bartender fills 3 glass tankards with ale, placing them on the bar in front of Dean one by one. When he's done, he looked expectantly at Dean. When Dean just stares back into his eyes, his brain unhelpfully flatlining, the guy says, "Your name?" Dean begins, taken by surprise. He'd been made to leave all non-costume items in a locker earlier in the day, including his wallet, and he now makes himself catch up with the process of marking drinks down for the later payment. What's his name again? Dean Winchester. Very well, Dean Winchester, the guy says, rolling the name around on his tongue like he's tasting it. The sound sends a jolt through Dean's gut, and he hopes they're on the same wavelength here, because little Dean is seriously getting on board already. Little Dean is waking up, guys. He's on high alert. The guy continues. I'll be done in 7 minutes. Dean nods. Right, okay, sure, okay. He quickly picks up the beers, weaving his way through the crowd with the 3 tankards in his hands. He's not nervous. Sure, he's no stranger to the occasional hookup in a normal bar, though he hasn't hooked up with a guy in years, probably since he was a senior at high school. Just like riding a bike though, right? He glances over his shoulder and makes out the bartender through the crowd, serving the next customer with a pleasant, almost smile on his face. The guy is drop-dead gorgeous, no doubt. He hurries back to the table, shaking his head. He's got this. So Dean's been hooking up with dudes in high school. Noted. Charlie and Gilda break apart with a slurp, turning to their beers happily. Ah, here we are. Nice work, handmaiden, Charlie says, then stares at Dean as he picks up his ale and downs most of it in a few gulps. He puts the mug down, licking his lips, then looks up at the girls. What? He asks, picking up the mug again, ready for another gulp. I'm thirsty. Huh? We can see that, Gilda says, looking over his shoulder at the bar. When Dean spins to look behind him, he sees the bartender looking in their direction. He winks at Dean, then goes back to serving some more of the Queen's soldiers. Shut up, Dean says, gulping down as much of the beer as he can take in one go, then slams the mug back into the table. Right, he says, getting to his feet and turning a grin on his friends. Don't wait up. Dean, you're driving me home, Charlie reminds him with a smirk. Oh, right, yeah, well, I'll find you later, he says, backing away from the table and nearly running into someone standing behind him. He whirls around, coming face to face with the tall bartender. Hello, the guy says, then cocks his head to the side in perhaps the cutest confusion Dean has ever seen. Are you all right? Totally fine, Dean says, righting himself against the nearest table. Peachy, in fact. He can hear Charlie and Gilda laughing quietly behind him, and he throws them in a murderous look over his shoulder. When he turns back to Blue Eyes, I love the fact that it's Blue Eyes. He also given the Queen her consort a glance. Although he looks amused, Dean considers turning and slinking away in shame, but to his surprise, the guy reaches out and takes his hand. His grip is warm and strong, and more than one part of Dean perks up and takes interest. I don't know why, but I always imagine Cass to be cold to the touch, and I don't know why. Walk with me, the guy says, inclining his head again, this time towards the tavern's door. Dean just nods and follows along after him, his trapped hand not leaving him much choice. Outside the crowded tavern, the festival is still in full swing. The Queen's subjects are now mingling freely with elves and whatever the other guys are called. Dean wasn't really paying attention while Charlie explained. A few kids in cute outfits run past, and Dean is struck again with surprise by how much of a family affair this LARPing thing is. The barkeeper finally stops pulling Dean along by the hand as they clear the crowd at the front of the tavern, and instead walks beside him as they enter the market square. Stalls line the sides of the section of the encampment, full of colourful goods. Handmade clothes and jewellery are displayed next to the plate armour and leather. I'm Castiel, by the way. The guy finally says, his low voice murmured into Dean's ear, making him shiver, even in the warm afternoon sun. Dean turns to look at him and is lost again in his blue eyes, strikingly bright in the sunshine. Dean? is all he can manage. So, you already said hello, Dean, Castiel says, and just the corner of his mouth lifting almost melts Dean away into a puddle. He'll follow his guide anywhere right now, just to see that smile again. Cute. You're part of the Queen of Moons. What's that? Moon's entourage, then. You're a druid. I can't read English now. Dean shakes his head. Handmaiden, he says, then grimaces. Charlie's title for him is kind of embarrassing. He's supposed to be making an impression here. Well, I'm her attendant, assistant, sorta. So, if I were to ask for your assistance, you'd serve me too? Castiel asks, a casual sort of request, but Dean is pretty sure it's anything but. Serve you? Dean asks. Keep it cool, keep it cool. A barkeep? Castiel looks affronted for a moment. I'm a respected business owner and landholder. Actually, and you're just a lowly servant. You should be calling me sir. I mean, I'm into this role play right now. Dean opens his mouth and closes it again. He nearly arcs up at the guy. At the guy for talking to him like that before he realizes what's happening here. They're role-playing, aren't they? But in this world, he's one of the Queen's honoured bodyguards. Hardly a servant, is he? But Castiel doesn't wait for a reply. He leans in, raises one eyebrow again in a questioning way that makes Dean's mouth water and his stomach do an odd kind of flip. His voice is low. He practically growls as he says, would you like that, handmaiden? To serve me? Oh, this is getting steamy now. Dean is aware his mouth is hanging open and he closes it, self-consciously licking his lips. Castiel's eyes track the movement intense in their heat. Seems only fair to return the favour, Dean says, aiming for nonchalance. He adds, since you've already served me, I mean. Castiel nods. I know a place. Follow me. Dean follows him as he leads off across the market, wondering what he's got himself into. I mean, I think you know what you've got yourself into here, mate. Castiel leads him away between two tents and then behind a small hut with a locked door, probably somewhere for a groundskeeper to store equipment, Dean guesses. Behind the hut is a small clear area surrounded by high bushes and oak trees towering overhead, making a green kind of bubble. The sounds of festival are muted, although still audible through the foliage surrounding them. The ground is scattered with trash, a few cigarette butts and soda cans against the wall. Castiel digs into a pocket on the inside of his overshirt, pulling out what looks like a rolled up cigarette and a lighter. He turns to Dean. I come here sometimes to, he holds up the joint between his fingers. Take the edge off. You mind if I... He raises an eyebrow again in question, and Dean shakes his head, surprised. He's not much of a smoker, only occasionally at parties. But he has to admit, the sight of Castiel lighting up and drawing in a heavy drag, then blowing the fragrant smoke out above their heads in a long exhale. It's hot as fuck. Castiel holds the joint out to Dean and he takes it, taking a lungful and letting it out again, as Castiel had done. The pot does its work quickly. He's feeling looser already, but still not entirely sure what this guy's after. I think I know what he's after. So Dean begins passing the joint back to Castiel. You come to these things often? Castiel snorts a laugh. Yes, Dean, I live in a room above the tavern I work in. Dean opens his mouth to protest the tavern is a tent, but Castiel just takes another drag, then holds it in as he beckons Dean close. He leans forward to murmur in Dean's ear, don't ask stupid questions, just shut up and kiss me. Dean pulls back to blink in surprise at him, then Castiel grabs him by the neck and his free hand and pulls him in, capturing his mouth in a firm kiss. Dean leans into him, licking into Cass's mouth and tasting the smoke on his tongue. He rubs his hip against the bulge he can feel in Castiel's pants, making him groan in a way that shoots sparks down Dean's spine. Oh, it's getting tasty here now. Oh my god, Ellen! Ellen! Suck my cock, Castiel gasps, and Dean wastes no time in fumbling with Castiel's definitely modern bell and freeing his hard length from his underwear. Dean runs his fist. I'm sorry, we're going into fists now? This jumped quickly. Dean runs his fist along Castiel's length. He's thick, really thick. Dean Dean swallows in anticipation as he drops to his knees in the dirt, working himself up to the task by nuzzling his face into the crease of Cass's left hip bone. We're in his hip bone right now. Dean, Castiel says, and Dean leans back to look up at him through his lashes. Oh, through his lashes. Exactly the way your nose drives most people wild. Castiel growls slightly, his gaze dark and heated, but takes himself in hand and taps the tip of his cock against Dean's lips. I actually can't with this. Oh my days. This one's got me all flustered. It's getting hot in here. It's getting really hot in here. Impatient, Dean thinks, before he opens his mouth and licks a stripe along his underside, tasting pre-cum as he reaches the head. I can't. He opens wide then, swallowing Castiel down as far as he can. He tightens his lips on the way back up and pops off with an obscene slurp, earning a gasp from Cass. Keep going, sir. Dean drawls, not really sure what he's saying anymore, but willing to use sass to get what he wants. I mean, he loves a bit of sass, doesn't he? Sure enough, Castiel takes the bait. With another growl, he feeds himself back between Dean's lips and takes Dean's face in both hands, gently at first and gradually increasing in pace.
Oh, it's Chinese.
He puts Dean's face. At first, Dean tries to keep his mouth tight, his lips sealed around Cass, but soon all he can do is let go, relaxing his throat and taking it in. Oh my God. He loves this. The feeling of giving pleasure to someone else. I mean, that is very him, isn't it? Letting them take what they need. He drifts, letting himself be used. The sounds of the man above him, all he needs. The heavy breathing, the moans, the occasional whisper of his name. Nails against his scalp pulling on his hair. Tears at the corners of his eye. Tears at the corners of his eyes. His own tight pants holding him in. Hurried breaths through his nose and bitterness at the back of his throat. Castiel's pace increases until his rhythm falters. And Castiel pulls back a little as he says, I'm gonna... Dean grabs him, one hand on each hip, and holds him in place as he thrusts deep into Dean's throat, making him gag slightly. But he swallows it all down because he's a true champ. He's a true champ. Is our Dean. He licks at Castiel until he backs away from his mouth, and then Castiel is kneeling in front of him on the ground, kissing him deeply. Fuck. Dean, that was... He pauses to kiss Dean again, humming his appreciation. That was incredible. Dean's sure he hears Castiel's mutter, "Gotta be fucking kidding me." As he gets back to his feet, louder he says, "Dean, get up quickly." Castiel grabs him under one shoulder and helps him up. "Cass," Dean breathes, a lazy smile on his face as he leans in for another kiss, but Castiel grips his cheek with one hand. His touch is soft against Dean's cheek, creating a strange contrast with the annoyed look in Castiel's eyes. There's no time. Those were the haunts of the Shadow Arcana. Dean blinks at him, arousal gradually clearing from his mind. The what? Castiel looks over his shoulder at the sound of shouts somewhere outside their sanctuary of trees. They must be attacking again. Unusual, but not unexpected. Dean huffs in disbelief. Is he really about to cock blocked by some freaking IT guys pretending to be warriors? Can we just... He waves his finger around in a circle. Stay here. Castiel shakes his head, disappointment clear in his face. Within minutes, this part of the forest will be crawling with orcs. Your queen will need you. You should go. Fuck. Dean really doesn't want to leave him like this when there are orcs coming, not to mention the radiant boner he's still supporting in his levers. Well, what are you going to do? He asks, stepping back anyway. Castiel sighs. I must protect the tavern and the merchant square. Well, don't sound too excited about it, Dean says, laughing despite his frustration. He eyes Castiel's answering smile, still unwilling to leave him without any hope of continuing this later. Will I see you again? Castiel hesitates, opening his mouth and closing it again, like he was about to say something, then stops himself. Instead, he grabs Dean by the neck of his chainmail and pulls him in with a clatter for a scorching kiss. their mouths pressed together for barely a few seconds as Castiel pushes him away dazed. Dean has to check that the sun hasn't actually exploded and rains sparks down from the sky. If the fates are kind, Castiel murmurs, then he pushes Dean away. Go, he says, turning to where the sounds of shouting are getting closer. Dean reluctantly turns and stumbles back the way they had come. Through Market Square stall owners looking around curiously, but not outwardly panicking, Dean realises that this attack was probably scheduled and probably wouldn't range into his area. He hurries to where Charlie's army had prepared for the morning's battle near the Queen's tent. The followers of the moon are gathered there, as well as groups of what Charlie had explained were their allies for today, the elves. Their pointy, prosthetic ears look freaking uncomfortable to Dean, but each to their own. There you are, Sam says cheerfully, passing him a wooden sword. Where the hell have you been? We've been looking all over for you. I was just, Dean trails off, pointing back over his shoulder, but before he can explain, Charlie calls for their attention. The orcs are on the march. One loud, hot charge later, Dean and Sam walk back towards the Queen's tent, sweaty and kind of exhausted, to meet back up with Charlie. We should definitely come back for their next thing, Dean says, his mind on the hot bartender rather than any of the battles he fought in today. Sam looks at him, flicking his long mop of hair out of his eyes. Sure, I guess. I think Charlie said that they have something once a month, didn't you? A whole month? Oh, he can't wait a whole month. Dean do be thirsty. That's way too long to wait to see Castiel again. Dean decides he needs to go find the guy and get his number at least. Hey, I just remembered there was something I was going to grab from the market square. I'll catch up with you. Actually, I was going to take off with Brady and the others. Sam turns to head off across the field. See you at home, Dean. Right, don't do anything I wouldn't do. Dean calls after him. His moose brother just waves over his shoulder as he goes. Outside the tavern, a couple of people are packing away chairs and tables. Dean moves for the doors, but one of them stops him. Sorry, sir, the tavern is closed for the day. Festival finishes at 5 this month. Dean tries to walk past the guy, saying, Really? I just need to see someone in there, just for a moment. No, really, I'm sorry, but we can't let you inside, it's the rules. The guy stands in Dean's way, so he turns back with a frustrated sigh, heading back towards Charlie's tent. So, Charlie says, enjoyed your first visit to Moondor, handmaiden? She smirks over her beer, knowing full well how much Dean had enjoyed his day. Dean nods as he swallows his mouthful. He shifts on his stool, glad to be out of his leather and mail, but blinking in the flashing disco lights. How did Charlie find this dive? I did, yeah, a lot of nice people there. Like that guy you met in the tavern, huh? Gilda asked with a grin. Like him, yeah? Who knew Moondor was such a great place to hook up? I mean, you guys met there, right? Charlie nods. That's right. She pauses and turns back to him. Wait, did you just say hook up? Is that why we couldn't find you before the battle? Dean grins. Yeah. Isn't that what all you nerds do at these things? Well, yeah, Charlie says, but that guy you were with, didn't he work behind the bar? Yeah, he lured me away for a bit of personal tour of the market square. Definitely saw your market square, Dean. Dean's smile falters. Charlie's reaction is starting to worry him now. Those tavern people are NPCs, aren't they? Gilda asked Charlie. Charlie turns her broad grin on Dean. They sure are. Dean glances between the two. Wait, what? What do you mean NPCs? Non-player characters, you know, like villagers and shopkeepers in video games? Charlie's grin is firmly in place. Non-player? Dean frowns, confused. Charlie's look turns pitying. They're paid to be there, Dean. There's this app where you can apply for NPC positions, get paid by a LARP group to run part of the festival. They're not supposed to leave their designated areas until they're on break, and they're certainly not allowed to seduce the players. Dean laughs nervous now. That's not what happened at all, he replies weakly. He said it was his break, so yeah, and he made me get back to you when the attack came. Said he had to defend the tavern, so don't go getting him fired or anything, okay? Charlie mimes, zipping her lips. Wouldn't dream of it. Fuck, Castiel had been role-playing, certainly, but had he been working? Surely seducing the Queen's men wasn't part of the job description. Gilda asked gently, so where is he now? Did you get his number? Well, no, there wasn't time for that. Dean drained the last of his beer, annoyed that it'll be a whole month before he might see the guy again, if he even shows up working at the next month's festival. Charlie pouts at him. Oh, you really liked him, didn't you? Well, I mean, Dean says, fiddling with his beer bottle. He looked sidelong at Charlie with a smirk. He was hot. really hot. Understatement, Dean's brain supplies unhelpfully. She laughs. How about this? I messaged Sarah. She's got access to the admin system, probably the contact details for NPCs. She'll never give us his number, but maybe I can ask her to text him where we are. If he's really interested, perhaps he'll show up. Dean blinks at her. You can do that. Charlie heads outside to make the call, away from the noisy crowd. Dean spends the time anxiously fetching more drinks, wondering if it was a good idea to even tell Charlie about Castiel. She can be a little focused when she's got a new project. But when he gets back to the table, she's already back, smirking as she slips her phone back into her bag. You doubted me. It's good to be queen. Never doubted you. Thanks, Charles. Dean grabs her around the head and kisses her on the top of her hair as she tries to wriggle free, then gives up and hugs him back. Cute. They drink, and then Gilda drags Charlie onto the dance floor when some upbeat song comes on. It's 30 years too young for Dean's taste, and he's not quite well oiled enough to convince any kind of dancing, so he waits, nervously drinking and checking the time on his phone. Charlie and Gilda stagger back towards their table, laughing. Dean looks up at Gilda's gasp. Dean? Charlie breathes, looking over Dean's shoulder. Dean spins to look behind them and he scrambles to his feet. Striding across the dance floor to join them, now clad in dark jeans and some kind of tan jacket that suits him perfectly, is Castiel. He stops a few feet from Dean, the disco lights playing over the small smile on his face as he looks Dean over. As he looks Dean over, down then up. Hello, Dean. He says, hello, boys. And Dean's knees nearly buckle under him. I mean, mine would as well, in fairness. Hey, Castiel, Dean replies, and then adds quickly, if that's actually your name, should I call you something else? Castiel huffs, looking down at his feet for a moment. No, that's actually my name, but Cass is fine. Sure, Cass, Dean breathes, without thinking. He steps forward, lifting one hand up to cup Castiel's rough jaw and brings their mouths together in a sweet kiss. Perhaps they might get a happily ever after all. The end! The end! Hope you guys enjoyed that. I definitely did. Yeah, I just want to say as well, before I go, that fanfic was so much fun. Like, really, really fun. And if you guys did enjoy it, I will do more of it, but you're going to have to let me know that you want to see more of that. I'm all for the feedback on what you want to see from myself. But the fanfic is definitely safe as long as I get the go ahead for the writers as well.